All right, February energy update. And so I'm also going to start off with the reminder that these energy updates, I'm a huge believer that we should be on a 13-month, 28-day calendar. So these themes that we're talking about don't necessarily start and stop at the last day of a month and the first day of a month. You can maybe start to tell that some of these themes have already been starting to come up in the last few days, and you might not really experience some of them until later into the month, especially at the end of my channel updates. As you know, I always like to tie in some astrology, as well as because February 17th, we are moving into the year of the horse, which this year is a fire horse, which I think this is something along the first time in like 30 years that this has happened. Might be 100. I'm sure I have the number written down somewhere, but it's quite rare and quite powerful as well. That isn't happening until February 17th. So again, just a little reminder to not necessarily think that like February 1st is the start of all of this. You will start to recognize it throughout the month as well as we're meeting these different points in the astrological forecast as well. So if you guys know anything about me, you know that I get really excited about things that maybe other people don't, when things maybe sound like they are challenging and just really like straight to the point. I love it. And that's a little bit what this energy update is. And so I also want to give the reminder that anything that maybe feels challenging that is coming up is actually coming up from a very loving place. When these things happen and start to shift that we feel are challenging us, it is God and the universe really trying to redirect us on a path that can bring us closer to happiness, closer to our true selves, and to a place where we really love ourselves, which I think ultimately at the end of the day is what we're all looking for. So February's theme is releasing resistance. And this is releasing resistance across the past, the present, and the future. So I want you to take a moment right now and check in with what experiences you are still gripping tightly to or resisting experiencing. So either something that you are holding on to, wanting tightly, or an experience that is actively happening to you that you are resisting. So take a moment and bring that to mind. And so from here, what I want you to remember is that we talk about all the time that what we resist persists, but that insistence is another form of resistance. The more we are insisting and forcing a specific outcome, the more we actually block the actual lesson from coming in. So, for example, because we also can tend to force perspective and meaning onto events that are happening. So, an example of this is maybe you went through a heartbreak, maybe you went through a breakup, and you've assigned the meaning to that, that is clearing space for my soulmate to come in, right? This challenge is happening because now my knight in shining armor is going to come and show up. And so while that might be true and it could be true, insisting on that specific narrative is actually a way of resisting the reality of that experience. I'm going to say 9.9 times out of 10. I actually want to say 10 times out of 10, 100% of the time. Be honest, Lori. Everything that we are going through is for our personal growth and evolution, not the outcome. So the deeper meaning in experiencing something like a breakup or a heartbreak is more likely for you to identify maybe where you gave away your power, where you still believe that you need somebody else to make you worthy. And when you release the need for the physical manifestation to justify your pain, you actually allow the experience to have its own inherent value. And so again, I think if you can kind of bring this to your awareness, you'll recognize how often we do this, right? Even when there is maybe a change in my business, I can go really quickly to saying, oh, well, there must be something better that's on the way. And though that's true, what is the lesson for me that this challenge in the business is bringing me, without going straight to trying to figure out what the outcome of it is going to be? And we often believe that it is the outcome that gives life meaning, when in reality, the emotional growth and the awareness that we gain through these experiences, in God's eyes, is the true reward. So when we accept the meaning as it is, rather than forcing it to be what we want, that's when we actually become a vibrational match for what we desire or what God has in store for us. And this is the law of cause and effect in its simplest form. The cause, and I released a podcast episode on this on Monday. Highly recommend you go listen if you haven't already. Our purpose here is not a job. It's not to accomplish anything outside of ourselves. Our purpose is to live this human experience, to go through the uncomfortable, messy things and learn from them. And so essentially, when you are focused on your lane, you are focused on what life is teaching you and acting on actually implementing those things, that is when you are in your purpose, that is when you are in the cause, and that is when the effect will now present itself as a byproduct, not a forced outcome. And there are a lot of things that we can force to happen. You've probably done it before. I know I have, and will probably do it again. You can force meaning that this means that I'm going to meet somebody after this breakup, and you can meet somebody and you can get into another relationship. But are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Or are you still maybe in your codependent wounds? Are you still in a place of disempowerment? These are the really important things to look at. And so February is also bringing us an opportunity, when we release resistance, to move into a divine perspective instead of our third dimensional logic. And so as humans, we tend to process events through a very literal third dimensional lens. This is why receiving guidance can feel so frustrating sometimes, intuitive guidance, messages, because they don't always make sense literally. But a lot of times we realize that there's a bit of a deeper meaning there that we couldn't see, either because it hadn't played out yet, or it wasn't in our awareness because we've been so busy focusing on this thing. And we tend to pride ourselves on being right. It's not There's nothing wrong with you for wanting to be that way. I really believe it's just part of our nature. But when we are so focused on being right about what a challenge is teaching us, we can actually miss out on what that higher perspective of the lesson is. So when you're obsessed with seeing a specific outcome from your challenges, you could be missing what actually is. Meaning, if you are insisting that I went through this because of ABC, you could close yourself off from XYZ actually being the reason you went through this. And so I want you to imagine for a moment that you are trying to visualize a color that you've never seen. Close your eyes. And you can't. Every color that you visualize is just a mixture or a shade of colors that you have already seen and that you already know. This is because the human mind struggles to conceive anything that it does not know yet. They even say that when you dream, the faces of strangers that you see in dreams are actually the faces of people that you've seen in your life, whether it's just walking past them on the street or not. But because our minds can't actually create a face that we haven't seen, we're always drawing from somewhere. And it could be a combination of this person's nose with that person's eyes, but we actually can't create anything new in our human mind. I believe new insights arrive as divine revelations. These are those kind of drop-in, aha, download moments that can only happen when we surrender our need for control. I believe that everything new that has helped us progress in life came from a divine revelation. You can't build new by thinking about the old. And all our ego mind is capable of doing is processing things through the past lens, trying to take new combinations of old things. And so when we learn that the things, when we learn something that we never could have expected, that tends to be when we're actually having like a spiritual awakening moment. And these only happen when we let go of insistence, resistance, and surrender. February is also a great month to shut up and listen. This is part of surrender. This is part of letting go of resistance. February is a great month to be a humble student of life. And it was interesting channeling this because then I recognized that I had, this moment of realization a couple weeks ago. How often do we ask for guidance or somebody else's opinion on something only to interrupt with our own opinions? How often do we ask for help when we actually want to just hear a validation of what we already believe we should be doing? And again, we're not saying that that's wrong or bad, but if you want something new to occur in your life, it cannot happen by being filtered through the old. So true listening doesn't mean that you are subscribing to things that don't resonate with you. But I found this analogy that God brought through while channeling this really interesting, is that a lot of times we don't actually allow things to fully land to see if it resonates with us because we are filtering it through the old. And so the analogy is that imagine that your mind is a colander, right? The thing that you would wash fruit or strain your pasta in. And if it's already packed full of food, i.e., that food being old beliefs, then nothing new can actually pass through. And if it does, it's not really making it all the way through. The new information just kind of sits on the top, competing with the old. So you actually end up comparing the new to the old, looking for reasons to disprove it, rather than actually allowing it to come in, seeing if it serves you, and then releasing what doesn't. And so again, essentially to learn something new and to grow in 2026, which is a very powerful year of dismantling the old systems and creating new, right? How many of you are, not to talk politics, but a little, how many of you are frustrated with the current state of the world? We can't fix it using old systems. We have to be open to new ideas, to things that we haven't tried before. Otherwise, we are constantly trying to hold together pieces of a crumbling world, of our crumbling life. And so being the humble student, and again, not taking on what doesn't serve you or feel right, but actually allowing it to come through, to not argue it, to not compare it, to just sit with it for a while and see what sticks. Finally, and you guys know that I love accountability, releasing resistance requires accountability. So we must accept that poor behaviors are not excused by good intentions. I talked about this. I posted a little video in school as well as on Instagram. Are you using your good intentions to resist the truth of your impact on others? I think it's really interesting that we have all of these words that we assign meaning to. And so a word like selfish, for example, we've assigned the meaning to it that it's bad. And when it comes to intentions, we've assigned the meaning to it that it's good. When a lot of times, if you can be really honest with yourself, if a good intention leads to a negative impact, you might sit with it and realize that actually that good intention was fueled by my wounds. I did something with this good intention of helping somebody else, but because I'm a people pleaser and I was trying to avoid conflict. And that's actually the real reason behind me doing it. And so it is so important to always look at the why behind everything that we do, to look at the outcome, and then to audit and decide if we want to course correct. One thing that I'm really leaning into and that feels so important in 2026 is embracing being human. Releasing resistance is also stop taking yourself so seriously. Because the more seriously you take yourself, the more you want to be right, the more you are actually insisting on a specific outcome, the more you are resisting the outcome that is meant for you and that could actually help you. How many times in your life have failures turned into something really great? Why are we so afraid of learning what could be better for us now that we continue to suffer and defer that lesson further into the future? And so releasing that as well. Letting go of resistance means letting go of needing things to be your way and being open to what if the divine has a better way. This doesn't mean that we don't feel our frustrations or feel our anger. And at the event that I hosted last night, I talked about this. Like, I think it is so good sometimes in a controlled setting, meaning like not at work in front of your boss and your coworkers, like at home in the private of your home. Have a temper tantrum. You know you want to. When you're frustrated about something, when you don't like it, you can very well know what you have to do and that you need to do it. And you might still have emotions about not liking it, and that's okay. What happens when we just let a child have their temper tantrum? They tire themselves out. And the same thing happens to us. And this was pivotal for me in 2020 when the state of everything in my life was crumbling. And I knew what I had to do, right? Like at the moment when I was being evicted, for example, I knew that, okay, well, I just have to find somewhere else to live, but I didn't want to. And this is unfair. And so I let myself just have those emotions and get them out so that I could get to a point where I'm like, well, those aren't helping me. Let's pull up my pants and see what God has in store. And so finding that balance between honoring your emotions, feeling the frustration, letting it pass, so that you can actually then be in a state of surrender to, okay, what is the better way? And so a couple reflection questions that I'll post them here, but also note that they will be in the school app notes where the energy update recordings go. But if the specific outcome you are currently praying for, so that could be a job, a partner, an apology, if it never happened, what is the one internal quality or superpower that this season is forcing you to develop anyway? So if the partner never comes, what quality do you need to have internally to be okay with that and happy anyway? And in your most recent conflict or challenge, are you more committed to being right about why it happened? Or are you more committed to being free from the emotional weight of it? I think it's so interesting how often we want to be right. And again, there's two truths about the emotions and experiences we're having. They are valid in the terms of you're feeling them, and that's fair, and you're allowed to. And they're invalid a lot of the times from the sense of they aren't necessarily an accurate depiction of reality or what is happening. And so if you are holding on to something that you want to be right about, maybe that it's this person did this to hurt you, and they're giving you their perspective on it, and you want to force that truth to be, no, you did this intentionally to hurt me. Why do we want that to be the truth? Why are we fighting for suffering instead of fighting for freedom? And so these are really good questions to reflect on. Okay, a little bit of our February 2026 astrological forecast. So on February 20th, there is going to be a Saturn and Neptune conjunction, and this is known as the Great Reality Check. So Saturn is the planet of structures and boundaries, and Neptune is the planet of dreams and illusions. And so this is a pretty rare event. And the connection to this is the literal dissolving of the old structure to build a new reality. So this perfectly mirrors the message of divine revelations dropping in once we stop trying to control the old. And it's the moment where spirituality actually starts to become tangible because it is a lived, embodied, acted on experience. On February 17th, this is when the year of the horse begins, and we have a solar eclipse in Aquarius. So this is why if you've, been hearing the term fire horse, that it's the year of the fire horse, this is why. So the eclipse is occurring in the sign of the collective in the future. Eclipses tend to act as course correctors. So if you are resisting a lesson, an eclipse will often remove the distraction from you. And removing the distraction could mean many things. Maybe there was something that you were lying to yourself about and saying, nope, it's this, it's this, it's this. And then that becomes removed and you're actually faced with the truth. So it's an invitation to stop looking at life through that more third dimensional lens and to start being open to seeing a perspective that we weren't even aware of. And so the year of the horse, the fire horse, is a very rare placement. So my actual number here is it occurs only every 60 years. The horse represents momentum and independence, while the fire represents transformation and intensity. So again, you guys can see that this is like a very powerful and intense month, and we can either view it through the lens of being bad and hard, or we can view it through this positive lens of what's actually happening here. We're burning away and being shown in real rapid time the distractions, the things that we have been resisting and insisting upon to bring us closer to honesty and truth, because that is the groundwork for transformation and a new future. So this is honest connection. The fire horse is famously headstrong and insistent. So that energy can be a, real clash if you are in resistance. However, if you release the reins of the horse, then the horse will provide the stamina to move through your lessons, right? So again, kind of trusting that you don't need to be in control of this movement. You can allow it to actually guide you and carry you. And the fire horse year rewards courageous alignment, not forced alignment. So again, if you are trying to force this month and this year to go where it doesn't want to go, it will buck, so to speak. And if you listen and become the humble student, it will carry you to places that your little legs probably wouldn't have carried you. A horse can get you there much faster. And so again, remembering that horse energy is symbolic, right? It is symbolic of the energy of this year that God, that the divine is bringing forward to help us move with more momentum and clarity and truth. So I know that was a lot. The recording, as always, will be uploaded if you guys want to go back and listen to it. I will also upload all of my Spark notes so that you can read and jot down anything from there. For anybody who is in the free membership who maybe wants to upgrade to the premium one, I will have a call on Monday afternoon, 12 to 1:30, where I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into teaching on some of these topics. I also have a thread in the community asking what you guys want to hear about. So I think, Anne, it was you who had put a topic in that I'd really love to kind of bring into Monday's teaching as well as podcast episodes. So if you guys are interested in learning more and hearing more, the Monday group coaching calls have a lot of this, as well as 30 to 45 minutes where you actually get to ask questions and receive intuitive guidance and coaching in real time on anything that you are going through. So if you are interested in updating, you can either send me a message or just go to the calendar. And when you click on Monday's call, it'll give you the option to upgrade. And you can cancel anytime and stay back in the free membership. So just wanted to mention that because, again, this is a lot. And I want you to know that I do dissect these things in more specific ways in other places in that community. In the meantime, take this energy, let the fire horse burn away what really isn't working for you, let go, stop trying to hold on to it, and trust that something much better is going to be built through this transformation. Okay, awesome. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay warm, everybody.